It's easy to attack and destroy an act of creation. It's a lot more difficult to perform one. Chuck Palahniuk. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about a subject that I've written blog posts on, but I've never really provided my opinion or shared my experiences as someone who's been sharing her art and her thoughts on many subjects, both online and locally, for a number of years now. And I've never really provided any tips or advice on this kind of thing before on video, because I know that you guys are interested in making deeper progress as artists and just doing the things that come along with growing artistically, such as putting your work out there and sharing about your thoughts as an artist and why you're doing what you're doing and all that kind of stuff. And this is dealing with criticism and critics and even haters. Okay, so this is a very important topic that I'm definitely going to relate to mindset. You guys know that I am huge on developing our mindset as artists, our growth mindset, so that we can actually be supported by the way we think in our journey, which is going to help us stay consistent and enjoy our journey a lot more. I'm going to relate it to mindset later, but it's so important to just be able to talk with other artists as well and see how they kind of deal with this kind of thing throughout their journeys, right? So that we know that we're not alone. And I hope that what I share today will help you. But it's so important to do because as artists, yes, a lot of us, if not most of us, are introverts. We create in isolation, right? But we create art to share with others ultimately. We're constantly putting our thoughts, which are personal, art is personal, out there constantly. As any artist, really, writers, musicians, even actors or dancers, right? It's a very personal thing, and you're kind of vulnerable as you're sharing yourself. But it's also important because it's the only way that you're gonna get to connect with the people who really connect with your work, right? If you don't put yourself out there, then those people who would connect with your work would never get to. They would never get to know you and what you're doing. As artists, once you're ready to start growing that community around your art, or your audience, as some people would like to call it, which is important if you're looking to make any sort of consistent income, or if you're ready to start selling, it's essential to constantly share about yourself, your process, and your work. It's essential that you constantly put yourself out there, whether it's locally or online or both. And it's incredibly scary, and oftentimes it can make you feel very vulnerable. But at the same time, you're in a position of power as a creator and as this vessel that creates these things that put life back into perspective and remind people of the beauty in life. We have to really grow that courage in order to continue as artists. We have to grow our confidence. Without those things, it's going to be very difficult to keep going. And I'm going to be hopefully providing you tips today that I personally have used as a total introvert that struggled for the majority of my life with very low self-esteem for reasons that I'm not even going to get into, but I struggled with a very low self-esteem for a very, very long time in my life. And I had to grow my courage. I had to grow my confidence in order to keep growing my artistic career. As artists, constantly sharing our work and putting ourselves out there, whether it is in a smaller scale, meaning maybe just your family and friends, or at a larger scale, online or in a public art event, we have to be okay with the fact and understand and accept the fact that not everyone is going to connect or relate to what we're doing or even like what we're doing. We could be amazing at what we do. We could have the most amazing, positive, honest intentions, and still not everyone is going to like you or what you do. And we have to be okay with this because everyone is looking at life through their own lens, so to speak, based on everything that they've been through so far. And what's important is that we put ourselves out there so that the people who do connect with our work are affected by it positively. And you also have to be aware and accept the fact that if you're constantly putting your work out there, then you're gonna get unsolicited opinions thrown at you from random people or maybe even your family and friends. You have to be okay with that. And the larger your name grows, the larger your audience grows, the more likely that that will happen more often. Okay, so I am going to move on to talking about 4 things that I wanted to make sure to include in today's video pertaining to this topic of taking criticism and critics in your art journey. So the first thing is I want to talk about why criticism and feedback is important in an artist's journey. The second thing that I want to talk about is the difference between actual constructive criticism or critique or feedback versus trolling, insults, attacks, and just unfounded opinions that are not very helpful at all. The third thing that I want to talk about today is when you should actually listen, or how to know whether you should actually listen to that feedback or those opinions that are being thrown your way. And finally, I just want to provide you some ideas, some reminders that hopefully will stay with you along the way, that will make this whole thing a lot easier for you and won't keep you from creating work and won't kind of stop that momentum that you have going on. So let's get straight into number 1. Why is constructive feedback and critique an essential part of an artist's journey? So getting constructive feedback and critique from a person who knows about art, and even from people who are providing it respectfully, is essential for our artistic development. We are able to improve our skills, and we are also better able to communicate the messages that we're looking to communicate with our artwork through getting that feedback from others that are seeing it. Oftentimes we're very close to our artwork and there is no way to know, what other people get from our artwork if we're not putting it out there and we're not open to receiving that feedback. It's important to stay open to other people's ideas and their feedback as long as it's coming towards us in a respectful manner. There is no need to get defensive if it is coming towards you respectfully and with the intention of helping you grow, helping you improve. It's important to know what others connect to in our work and to be able to talk about our work with others. So this feedback is going to help us improve not only in terms of our cold technical skills, but also in terms of our communication. And finally, it's also very important to set our ego aside. We have to learn how to set our ego aside because we are all continuing to learn and grow, and we all have strengths and weaknesses and space to keep improving. Moving on to number 2. How to tell whether that criticism that is coming your way is actually constructive versus when you can just set it aside and ignore it because it's not really helpful at all. So as I just mentioned, you're gonna know if the criticism that is coming your way maybe has pieces that you can use to improve your work, if it's coming towards you in a respectful way, and if the person is pointing out objective, specific things and giving you ideas on how to maybe improve or how to explore further with those specific things. You'll know that the criticism is not constructive when it is an insult, an attack towards you personally, and the person is bringing up things that don't really have anything to do with your artwork or are not very objective at all. The person is just spewing just thoughts and opinions that are not really based on objective things that are present or evident in your artwork. People who are providing you actual constructive criticism and feedback are not looking to tear you down. And as artists, we have to be able to differentiate, to tell apart when a person is offering some feedback that is helpful, or there are nuggets in that could be helpful, versus the people who are insulting us personally and trying to make us feel bad and tear us down because they're just, I don't know, it can be a bunch of different things. They could just be jealous. It could trigger insecurities in them, the fact that we are pursuing our true paths and dreams and they are doing nothing. There are a number of things that you can trigger in other people because you're working hard towards making your dreams come true and your dream life happen. As you move on in your journey and continue having these experiences, it's going to be easier to tell when a person is just attacking you because you're triggering them in some shape, way, or form. And this has really nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them. Moving on to point number 3, and this is how to know whether or not to listen to that specific person's feedback or critique. Okay, so I just want to start this point off by saying that the actual best feedback that you could possibly get, you're going to have to ask for. It's going to come from someone who is already doing what you want to be doing or has succeeded in some way in that area that you want to succeed at, and you actually admire and respect yourself. And most of the time, those people who are putting in the work, those people who are succeeding in what they're doing, they're not going to have the time to be providing you unsolicited advice or opinions because they're going to be very busy doing what they're doing to be successful. Realize that those people who are successful, those artists, rarely, if ever, go on other people's platforms that are working hard on improving and leave unsolicited opinions. Oftentimes, you're going to find that the people who have the most to say about your work, or at least the negative things to say about your work or about you, are the ones who are doing less in their own pursuits. There is a quote that relates to this, and this is, "Losers focus on the winners and the winners focus on winning." So essentially, if the feedback is good or bad, but it's coming from a person who does not know about art, they are not pursuing any kind of artistic path, they are not putting themselves out there, they are not doing the work, then ultimately you still know more about art than they do. And so you can really, it's completely up to you whether to listen or not. And when you should definitely listen is when the person is in an artistic path, is pursuing this, they do have experience. That's when you should consider listening to them, or at least listening to them in a more careful, mindful way than the other feedback you receive from people who maybe aren't into art and don't know much about art. So always, always consider the source. Okay, so just to finish up today's video, I wanted to share some key ideas with you that have stayed with me from books I've read and videos that I've seen and classes that I've been to that have really helped me move through these kind of negative experiences that have popped up along the way as I've continued putting my work out there online and locally. So that I can just handle them in a more positive and even professional way and just keep on keeping on, because that momentum, keeping on working, is so important. The first thing that I want to share with you is that as humans with this brain of ours, we have this negativity bias. So we could receive 20 amazing positive comments, and then we receive one negative one, and the one that sticks out to us is going to be the negative one. Even though so many more people loved our work, there is one person who didn't, who communicated that, and that comment is going to maybe even ruin our day. Our brain remembers past traumatic or negative events way more than the good, positive events that we experience. And it's just our brain trying to keep us safe and trying to keep us from doing that one thing that led to that negative thing happening, from doing it again. It's trying to keep us from doing that again. And it's important to remember that this is just like something that our brain does automatically, immediately, to events that are not really dangerous most of the time. You know, sharing your work and doing the work that's involved in pursuing your dreams, it's most likely than not life-threatening, but your brain perceives it that way. So I think that it's important for you to just know that this is completely normal, that it happens to all of us, and that it's just something that our brain does automatically. But you, as a human being who can think and can decide on what to do based on what's going on, you can decide on how to handle the situations and learn about and apply strategies that are going to help you move past that initial animalistic automatic response that your brain is doing, so that you can move forward faster and just let that go. I'm going to make sure to leave links to a couple of YouTube channels that I've learned from so much that I feel are going to be helpful for you as well, with a bunch of different topics that all directly or indirectly relate to what we're talking about today. The next thing that has helped me a lot is to remember that even though I am not in control of what goes on around me, and even though I cannot control what other people say or do, I can control how I respond to what's going on. Whether someone is coming at me with any sort of attack or insult about me or my work, whether I am, seeing them in person, they are in front of me, or whether it's online, I can always just take a step back and breathe and maybe ask them questions instead of getting defensive and trying to validate myself or prove myself or just explain whatever. I could just keep asking them questions and try to see where they're coming from and stuff like that. And if it's online, then I have the opportunity to walk away for a while and then think of how I want to respond, if I want to respond at all, or whether I just want to block them and just block them and keep them from ever posting on any of my platforms again. I think these are opportunities in which you can really prove to yourself who you really are, who you want to be, and see these as opportunities for growth. The next point that is always super helpful for me to remember is that every single artist out there, even the most amazingly skilled artists who have been at it for a very, very long time, they still have weaknesses and room for improvement. This is a journey of constant progress and constant learning, and there is no finish line. It's so important to set our ego aside and just remember that, we are constantly doing self-evaluation as artists as well, and that is so important for our progress. We have to embrace the fact that we all have weaknesses to continue working on, as well as strengths. It's a learning journey, and that's what matters, continuing to push ourselves to develop our skills and our knowledge. The next point that I feel has been super valuable for me to keep remembering is that anyone who has ever done anything worthwhile or anything different or has pursued any big goal has been met with criticism. Those artists who you admire, those great artists, and even non-artist, amazing historical figures such as Gandhi or Mother Teresa, they were insulted by people who did not connect with them, and they were met with tons of criticism, and they just kept going. Another thing that has really helped me move past those negative experiences faster is remembering my own mortality, remembering that life is short and that I should not be devoting my time, energy, and focus towards those things. I should be devoting these precious things to the actual things that matter to me and to continue growing in the direction that I want to be growing in. And if these kinds of people want to live their lives in that negative kind of insulting others, easily triggered kind of way, then that is their life, but that is certainly not the way that I want to live mine. One last thing that I want to close this video with is to remember to always continue working on your mindset and on your self-esteem. Okay, because as I said in the beginning of this video, those two things are key. And for me, it's been essential to continue working on these things alongside my knowledge of art and my artistic skills, because they are what sustain, they are the foundation that allows me to continue taking consistent action. Okay, so as I said, I'm going to leave links to resources that have helped me down below in the additional resource little section that I like adding in sometimes. But yeah, this is super, super important to continue building yourself up. And if you feel that there is anything inside of you that needs to be looked into, then there are strategies that can help you move past that so that you have more of that mindset that will help you continue on your journey in a more positive way. As you continue taking action and pushing through in your art journey, your self-confidence and your belief in what you're able to do will grow and will improve. That deep sense of who you are and why you're doing what you're doing is going to continue growing and getting stronger. And with this, you're going to understand that you don't need other people's validation. You don't need to be explaining yourself on why you're doing what you're doing, because this is what you're here to do. Thank you so very much for checking this one out today. And remember that no statue has ever been built in honor of a critic. Have a beautiful weekend and talk to you soon. Bye, guys.